coming down from upstairs for TechConnect. Can you all hear me all right? Okay, good morning, bonjour, salam, namaste, and hola to everybody. First of all, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Your presence is immensely appreciated. I hope you find today's workshop valuable as much as we have enjoyed putting this together for the first time on behalf of Grand Farm. First and foremost, I would like to express gratitude to NDSCES for supporting TechConnect and Autonomous Nation as a whole conference. And moving forward, some housekeeping items before we dive deeper with our amazing speakers is we've got Be More Colorful and NDSCES folks. They have their tables right across behind you. So make sure before you head out, you hang out with these amazing folks. They've got great technology and great programs that they're offering right here in Fargo, North Dakota. To make this session even more exciting, engaging, and entertaining, I would like to first introduce my co-moderator, Dr. Curtis Sullivan. He is the Vice President of Workforce and Culture at the Fargo Moorhead West Fargo Chamber Foundation. So Curtis moved from northern Colorado to North Dakota in July of 2015. He attended NDSU and earned his PhD in communication in 2019. He spent 2019 to 22 in Prescott, Arizona as a faculty member for Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. He's an accomplished amateur baker, a fervent reader, a regular gym goer, and a terrible gardener, if you're looking for. He returned in 22 shortly before the Chamber Foundation announced being a recipient of the Economic Development Administration's Good Jobs Challenge grant program for $9.6 million to the Fargo Moorhead West Fargo area. He began his tenure with the Chamber Foundation in September, and as of late July 23, he began a transition within the organization. He is now the Vice President of Workforce and Culture. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Curtis Sullivan.
Hello. Good morning. Hello, friends. Come, we have seats. They're wild. You can make new friends. You can sit. They have little bags on them. We have swag inside bags.
Yeah, what's up with those bags, Curtis? Do you want to talk a little bit about them?
Don't worry, everyone. We have a prepared and finite amount of banter to kill some time. So, my name is Curtis Sullivan. I am with the Fargo Moorhead West Fargo Chamber Foundation. And as Ruchi articulated, I am the Vice President of Workforce and Culture. For the last year, I have been managing a project about workforce, particularly in cybersecurity IT, precision agriculture, and advanced manufacturing. And all three of those industries are pretty intrinsically related to one another. We've been using a handful of tools, but more importantly, we have been cultivating and building strong relationships across our community in those sectors when it comes to business leaders, educational partners, nonprofit leaders, community leaders, etc. It's been a really interesting ride, and we have had an opportunity to really make something good. And here in the next couple of weeks, we'll be moving into phase 2, moving out of research and development, trying to figure out what the heck we're doing, and then actually doing it. Where we'll be providing people from underrepresented communities new pathways into education, new pathways into certificates, credentials, etc., particularly with organizations like Emerging Prairie's Emerging Digital Academy, which is a pretty sizable program for people, and we have the means and the capacity to help support people on that journey financially and also with some other services. So if you want to learn more about that, come talk to me. Now, Ruchi had asked about the bags. We have put together some swag bags for you. There's a handful of things in there. There's a handout about one of the tools that I use, Ignite FMWF, which is a online career envisioning space. We have stickers, we have pens, we have sticky notes, etc. But most importantly, we have sunglasses. So feel free to look fly and enjoy the sunglasses provided by Emerging Prairie. I see a handful of you with them. I appreciate that. You look very good. Very good. So, yes, Ruchi, what are we doing here today? What's going on?
Well, thank you so much for talking about the stuff that you do. Can you talk a little bit about your role as a vice president? Because as a student, I would always be curious to learn, like, what would your day be like, you know, the kind of work that you're doing, considering you have a degree in communication and the kind of stuff that you're doing right now, because most of our audience is students and educators, so I want to give them a perspective that it's not necessary that the kind of degree that you're working on, that you will be in that same field. Things are getting very interdisciplinary, so if you can throw some, highlight on that.
Yeah, so that's a great point. There's a lot of interdisciplinary crossover. If you would ask me, 6 years ago what I wanted to do, I was getting my PhD and I was on a journey to be a faculty member. I wanted to teach people how to talk good. Thank you. All right, that was a joke. Got a couple of smiles. Appreciate that. Bad joke. So I wanted to be a faculty member, right? That was the dream. I love teaching. The first day I walked into a classroom, I was like, this is it. I love it so much. How many teachers are faculty members outside here with me today? Then I learned about bureaucracy, and I learned about processes, and that got very challenging. And students are changing, and that's okay, right? So my wife had a great opportunity to come back here and move on with her career in a different direction, and I found myself kind of curious about who the heck do I want to be? Because academic jobs are not as easy to access as others. And so I started looking around, and when this grant came up, I thought, hey, there's a great opportunity in nonprofits to use my skills. So I'm lucky enough that my degree was in communication, but my undergrad was in English literature. Anyone said, yes, translatable skills. I appreciate it. But a year ago, if you would have asked me, what do you know about agriculture and drones and cybersecurity, I would have shrugged and smiled and made some nonsense up and wandered away. But using my communication skills that I've cultivated through my education, I go out and I get to interact with awesome leaders in our community, to interact with people like Ruchi and her team, to interact with nonprofits across the board that are serving individual communities, people that are coming out of the justice system, new Americans, BIPOC communities, etc. And it's a really fantastic opportunity. But when we think about this idea of interdisciplinary, what you are studying may or may not be where you end up. And if it's where you end up, that's awesome. Celebrate it. I want to encourage you on that path. But know that the things that you're learning, particularly in your 2 and 4 year programs, a lot of what that is this really intangible, beautiful thing about soft skills, about critical thinking, about communication. So if you're an engineer and you're sitting in your English classes or your speech class and you're hating every moment of it, I want to tell you a secret. In 2020, an organization called America Succeeds did a review of over 80 million job posts in this country. 80 million. And they did it for a quantitative/qualitative research analysis of that data. They were looking for buzzwords, key things, skills that they wanted. And what they found was about 100 very specific terms showed up in over 75% of those 80 million job posts. And of that 75%, they boiled them into 10 criteria. Do you want to know what number 1 is? It's communication. Because your businesses, the places that are going to give you tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to do your job per year, want you to be good at communicating. They want you to be a critical thinker, and they want you to demonstrate leadership. And while engineering and computer software classes are absolutely fantastic, I will never besmirch that important information. It's the stuff that you get between the lines at your 2 or 4 year degrees that really is going to elevate you in those spaces. How many of you are employers? How many of you have employees under you? Am I making crap up? All right, thumbs up if I am correct. Soft skills, durable skills are important. Okay, so all of the employers in our space right now agreed with me. Students, pay attention, okay? Yesterday, I was asked about one question. This is where I'll wrap up my nonsense here. And I said, particularly for students, what would you tell students starting at NDSU, starting at Concordia, starting at UMary, starting at MSUM? They said, what would be one thing you'd tell them? I said, absolutely, guaranteed. Number 1, approach your classes with intentionality and purpose. It sucks to get up at 8 a.m. It sucks to go to class sometimes. But if you get up and you go and you think, hey, my professors really tried and they really wanted to put something valuable for me together today, you're going to get something out of it. And that'll make that 8 a.m. a little bit more bearable. So that's my spiel for today. Anything else you want from me?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you for highlighting those 2 points, intention and purpose. Those are both things that have gone into curating this whole workshop today for all of you guys here. And communication, that's the key here. That's why we have these 8 amazing speakers who are passionate to communicate, their journeys, their successes and failures, and what it might look like. If you want to navigate into a new area of autonomous industry, or you just want to explore what's out there. Maybe you're not happy where you are, and there's opportunities. Or it can be anything. But these are people who are there to help, who are there to mentor, help you navigate your journeys. And without further ado, I'll just take one more minute. So my name is Ruchi, and I work for Grand Farm as the Grower and Education Program Manager. And I have been really excited to host this workshop for all of you. One of the reasons behind hosting this workshop was we wanted to find something local, which has the least amount of barrier for our educators and students in our region. We want to connect you with the best people, with the best leaders out there, so that if you get stuck in your career journey, you have people that you can look up to. And we're more than happy to make those connections and host more of such events. Getting back to our event schedule, we will have 8 speakers. Curtis is going to introduce them all. Each speaker will talk for 8 minutes each. Towards the end, we're going to have a panel discussion where the audience is free to have a Q&A with these amazing leaders. So, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. So, you do have sticky notes and pen in your swag bag, so feel free to write your questions down. We're going to save those questions for the end. We have about 30 minutes set aside for the end. We're going to do our best to keep everyone on time. In fact, Ruchi has big red numbers for our speakers so that they know they have 1 and 2 minutes left at those times, all right? So we're going to do our best to stay on time together. That being said, thank you again for being here. Thank you for being more colorful. Thank you, NDS, for being here. NDSCS, sorry. Thank you for joining us. I think it's going to be a really fun time. Our first speaker today is Dr. Ujjwal Adhikari. Not doctor, sorry. Just Ujjwal Adhikari. There's a lot of doctors in the mix today. I apologize. He is a former aspiring professional video game player, a passionate software developer, and a self-taught leader. Ujjwal loves being able to not only learn new things, but also teach them. And the most important period in his life was when he learned how to learn. And he hopes to share that journey with you. Please help me in welcoming Ujjwal.
Hello, everyone. When Ruchi asked me to do this presentation, I think she mentioned that there would only be 30 people. There's a lot more than 30 people. And I went into this presentation not knowing what to say or what to do. Because what could a 22-year-old high school dropout say to a crowd full of educated students and professionals? And that's when I started thinking, what makes me different than you? Was it education? I have education. Was it skills? I've developed the skills needed. Or was it the connections and an entry into the job market? I like to think that I'm pretty well connected in the market. So, you see, you all are probably much more smarter than I am, but I think that there's nothing that you guys have that I don't have, except maybe nerves at this moment. And so I attend a lot of events, conferences, and what I've noticed is that speakers, a lot of them speak just to say words, speak just to fill in their quota, but there's some that are very, very good. And I think it's distinguishing those from the weeds that'll really set you apart. And for me, I wanted this speech to be something that you can take from, something that's valuable. And how do I have all of those skills, all of those educations, and all of those connections? As a high school dropout, I could have learned them myself, but I didn't. So I essentially lied to all of you. I do have education, but it's not traditional education. My college, my schooling, was just a class full of 6 young adults and a teacher who was so passionate about what he was doing that he would work overtime, sometimes even in my dreams. I went to a coding boot camp and that became the foundation in which I was able to learn those skills and build upon myself to have a pathway into a career and a vast network of industry peers. That was also my entry into what this conference is about, autonomy. I am proud to say that I am the CTO and co-founder of a company based here in town named Kirkwall, who focuses on autonomous systems. You might be thinking, how in the world did he jump from not having skills, from becoming a high school dropout, to now being the CTO and co-founder of a company that will, I guarantee you, will make waves in the future? So it all started 2 years ago. I had moved back to Fargo against my family wishes to make a name for myself. I did not have the skills to do anything at that time, but what I did have was I had ambition and drive to not let others put me down. And I'm sure among all the speakers, you'll find that to be a common theme here. The rest of my journey is fairly cut and dry. I went to an event at NDSU, I found Ruchi, and she introduced me to Emerging Digital Academy, the coding bootcamp that I went through. I graduated from that, got an entry-level position, and then transitioned to an internship role at another company, and finally became the CTO of Kirkwall. I'm sure we'll dive more into that topic during the panel discussion. Autonomy has sort of taken Fargo by storm, similar to how AI has taken the rest of the world by storm. I go to Startup Brew, I go to TEDx, I go to Cultivate, I go to all these events in town, and all I hear is autonomy, autonomy, autonomy. Tractors, drones, and everything in between. Don't tell Ruchi, but at this point I may be getting a bit sick of that word. Every tractor, every agricultural device, and every IoT-enabled hardware has some form of autonomy now, and it really does have legs in Fargo. There are plenty of opportunities in Fargo, in the Fargo area, to get into these fields, and it doesn't just have to be software. You could go to Emerging Digital Academy and learn how to code these systems. Or you could become a drone pilot and fly drones. Or you could even go to ILT Academy or through the generator programming and learn how to build your own systems and start your own company. And honestly, the education system here does a great job. But I'll be fairly candid with you. The amount of opportunities I see in the Fargo area and the amount of students and educators not utilizing them appalls me sometimes. There's so much potential in Fargo, and you just have to have that drive and that perseverance to want more and to do more. I think that every person here has the ability to do more tomorrow than what they did today, whether that is mentally or physically. Thank you so much for listening.
All right, thank you. We're gonna have time for questions. So again, I encourage you to write them down. It's always good when we say, hey, we got questions, and people have them ready rather than the 45 seconds of awkward silence. So I encourage you to prepare for that. Our next speaker is Dr. Jia. Wait, Jia? All right, Dr. Jia. She obtained her PhD degree from the University of Arizona. She's a registered professional engineer in North Dakota and serves as a full professor at the Department of Agriculture and Biosystems Engineering at North Dakota State University. With a keen focus on water resource management, Dr. Jia directs the North Dakota Water Resource Research Institute. Her extensive teaching portfolio covers courses in natural resource management systems, drainage engineering, wetland design, and controlled environment agriculture. Renowned from her research, she has addressed critical water issues in the region, including floods, drainage, and droughts. Currently, Dr. Jia pioneers the use of advanced technologies and mathematics algorithms to automate irrigation and drainage water management. Please welcome.
Well, thank you for being here. This is an adventure. I think it's the first time probably I teach a class in an outdoor environment. So, lot of first times recently. So you look at my title, you see that I'm a professor in agriculture biosystem engineering and also the director for North Dakota Water Resources Research Institute. So you might be wondering, oh, this is an autonomous nation. It's about drone, it's about a tractor. Why you are here? Well, let me tell you, the automation is everywhere, especially in the engineering field. It's not just about tractor. Let me show you what that means. A little bit background about myself, and because when I introduce myself as a water resources engineer, you might be wondering, is by Ashton you're here? No. So you go way to the bottom, that you will see that I originally came from the northwest part of China. If you don't know what does that mean, you can just imagine there's a Gobi Desert, there's almost no water. So if there are agriculture or there are human beings, so that means that water from underground or from mountains, because there are barely any precipitation. So that's really motivated me to come to US to get a degree in agriculture engineering, particularly on water-related issues. That's where I got my PhD, and from University of Arizona, focusing on irrigation. And then I went to University of Florida as a postdoc, also focusing on water resources. In 2007, I came to NDSU, and trust me, this is the longest place I ever stayed in my life. So far, so good. So with that, I'm going to share with you just one type of research that I'm currently doing. It's called smart water management for high-value specialty crops. So in the last few years, we have been worked with watermelons, tomatoes, green pepper, muskmelon, squash, I forgot, sweet corn. So those are all my favorite vegetables or fruits. So you know that if you are from the southern part, it's very easy to grow them. But we are in North Dakota. The number one reason that we don't have is we have a very short growing season. We cannot change that. So in order to grow this, we need to use a technology. And then the technology I especially use is called precision irrigation, or most often we call that smart irrigation. So there are just some pictures that you can show. I can show you that from 2018, 2020. This is right on NDSU campus. We don't have electricity. We don't have Wi-Fi. We use a battery-powered controllers. We were able to grow that watermelon. That one is 19 inches long, 37-pound weight. And so, we really proved that we can grow it. So that's one research. And then this is, we grow tomatoes and green peppers in high tunnel. So if you use a high tunnel, which is an uncreated greenhouse, that means you need irrigation because you don't have a rainfall, and it also have a compact soil. So that's where I have my student here, that we have the automatic irrigation for these two crops. And then this is oaks. We grow those watermelons and melons, and that's where I showed on TV on last Friday. But today, I'm not going to show the watermelon. What I want to show you is the technology. So you're looking at the upper right corner, you can see that there's boxes. So I bring one of the boxes with all the sensors you need. So it's a $280 additional cost for the control system. You put whether it's drip irrigation or the small sprinkler irrigation, you can manage your crop, provide the exact amount, exact time. If you come from the oaks area, you probably will know that oaks area have a sandy soil. Irrigation is a must. So for that sandy soil has a very small water holding capacity. So it holds a small amount. So what can you do? We can irrigate 3 times per day in the spring. We can irrigate 12 times per day in the peak season, because each time we only irrigate a small amount. And that depends on the crop, depends on the soil moisture status in the ground. And watermelon probably use twice the amount of water as a muskmelon. And so that's where we have been doing. And then this is the smart irrigation system. As you can see that sensor is connected with the controller, and then the soil clip also connect with the controller, and then there's a valve as turn on and off the irrigation. When it's turned on, how much are you going to irrigate? That will depend on what we set up on the soil clay. Well, when we set up the soil clay, it really depends on the soil and the crop. So that's why, a lot of things for this technology. One is, yes, there's additional cost, it's $280 for those pieces. Another is how to set up. If you set up wrong, it probably won't help you. So that's where educator is going to play in. So if we have some conclusions from the Oaks project, is that if you irrigate, always keep it on the wet range. You don't have the perfect yield, actually use more water. It's more of like keep your bucket, let's say 1/3 full, and that's where you have more water that's available to the crop, and also the crop, its roots can go deeper. And I'm going to stop here. And as I mentioned, I bring one set of the controller here. If you're interested into the technology or interested in applying it to your own field, own garden, let us know, because the purpose for this project is to make sure more people can apply it. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Great job. As a terrible gardener, thank you for your work. Our next speaker is Scott Showfield. He's a retired Air Force veteran with an extensive experience in project management, procurement, sustaining military sites, and supporting remotely piloted aircraft. In his current role, he leads a multifunctional team to sustain day-to-day aircraft mission engineering, integrated logistics, and software sustainment operations at the Northrop Grumman Grand Skye site in Emerado, North Dakota. He holds an MBA in financial management from the Naval Postgraduate School, an MS in military operational arts and sciences from Air University, and a BS in economics from the U.S. Air Force Academy. Please help me welcome.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. First of all, thanks to Ruchi for inviting me to participate in this workshop. And thanks to all of you for coming out and showing interest in the autonomous industry. Just a little bit about myself. I had a pretty non-traditional route to get into this industry. As you can maybe pick up from my bio, coming out of high school, went to college at the Air Force Academy, joined the Air Force, and spent most of my career actually in procurement, purchasing things, executing government contracts, things of that nature. And so a lot of my job was engaged in high tech, dealing with satellites, lasers, radars, and remotely piloted aircraft. And my role was really to engage with the subject matter experts in all sorts of STEM fields and take their requirements and translate them to the business world so I could get them all the products, all the services, all the construction, everything they needed to do their job. And so that's kind of how I came up through it. Near the end of my career, I had the opportunity, volunteered to get stationed back at Grand Forks Air Force Base, and had a couple roles there, really integrating support across the entire Air Force Base to support our Global Hawk, RQ-4 Global Hawk flight operations all around the world, which was pretty interesting. Then I retired, had a natural fit over at Northrop Grumman, just across the runway at our Grand Skye site to pretty much do the same thing, just working for a contractor instead of government. So that was kind of my quick path into this. In terms of our company, Northrop Grumman is a very large company, close to 100,000 employees, Fortune 500 company, really focused on global security and human exploration. Here's just a couple of the portfolios that we engage in, all sorts of cool stuff. So you got space, aircraft, communications networks, missiles, sensors, all sorts of things. And really, when you peel back the onion on those, there's a lot of different disciplines that go into any one of these weapon systems. And so a lot of different people with different specialties that have to come together to make them happen. So at our Grand Skye site, which is about 15 miles west of Grand Forks, we have 4 core competencies. So our specialty there is large unmanned remotely piloted aircraft. And so as you can imagine, we focus on aircraft operations. So we have a lot of technicians that work on the aircraft themselves, like different components of it. We have folks that work with our ground support equipment, with our tools, quality assurance, all those things that they need to keep the aircraft operating. We also have a mission engineering section. The reason for that is the Global Hawk can be flown completely autonomously. It can take off, fly a 30-plus hour mission, come back and land with no human input. With that said, the Air Force historically has had a pilot and a crew sitting on the ground, monitoring and providing inputs to the aircraft as necessary, but it can fly autonomously. And so we need folks to program missions out in advance, do all sorts of modeling simulation, run through thousands of iterations to make sure that once launched, the mission can be successful. Then we have our software sustainment. When you look at the aircraft, a lot of people see an aircraft. You see wings and a fuselage and an engine, but what you don't see is the computers and the circuitry and all the software code inside of that airframe that allows it to not only fly, but to fly autonomously, as I mentioned. So a lot of folks there doing the coding and the software sustainment. And then finally, our logistics folks really working behind the scenes, getting all the parts and just kind of making everything flow so we can be successful. So our site is pretty new. We're completed in 2020, really cutting edge, state-of-the-art facility. And right out of the gate, our company sent us 3 Firebird aircraft, which is pictured here, which was an optionally manned aircraft. So you could either fly it with a pilot in the cockpit, or you could fly it remotely from the ground. So I flew that for a few months in the summer of 2020, kind of worked through the test process, and it was just wildly successful. Then in 2021, the Air Force decided to divest of 24 Global Hawk aircraft. And so George Rumsford, who's the director of the Test and Resource Management Center, who's actually inside right now making an announcement, he raised his hand and said, I want them. And so the Air Force transferred the 24 jets to Test and Resource Management Center. They in turn handed it over to us at Grand Skye to convert Global Hawks that the Air Force flew with downward-looking sensors to what we call Range Hawks, which will be flown with upward-looking sensors to support hypersonic testing. So right now, when the Test and Resource Management Center wants to conduct a hypersonic test, which is something flying at 5 times the speed of sound or faster, their current process, without getting into details, it's very labor-intensive, very time-consuming, very expensive. They can only do about 6 tests a year. And so the idea that we're testing out with 1 aircraft in the air right now, we'll get up to probably 3 in the air at any point in the future, is now you can fly the aircraft at 50,000 feet, fly the missile over top, and it can collect all sorts of data off that missile, so we can learn and further advance state-of-the-art when it comes to hypersonics. So that's kind of what we're working from a hardware perspective. What I would say the real future, though, really lies in our people, and I'm being sincere about that. Because, as you can imagine, we need lots of smart, capable folks in all sorts of different disciplines to come together to make any of this happen. And so, we have our team, kind of pictured in the top right there, kind of most of our current team at least, which is very capable. But we know that the future resides with you guys and folks like you. And so we have a very active intern program. Got a picture in the middle of some of our interns this past summer, both at the college and the high school level, getting them exposed to what we do. And then also do a lot of outreach with elementary schools, middle schools in the local area to introduce them again to ourselves, but more generally to different opportunities that there are in STEM. In terms of kind of coming to work for us, I'll be honest, most of the jobs we have right now are STEM focused, various forms of engineering, science, hands-on, technician work, skilled trades. So a lot of different avenues to pursue there. And so if that is something you're interested in, my recommendation would be pursue your passion. Get your education, get some experience, build up that skill set, and then look for opportunities, either with us or elsewhere within the autonomous industry. There's just so much cool stuff going on. At the same time, as I mentioned, we're a large company. And we need non-STEM people such as myself, right? And so if your passion lies elsewhere, my advice would be the same. Pursue your passion, get your education, get some experience, develop that skill set, and then look for opportunities to apply your skill sets within our company or within the autonomous industry. Because again, there's plenty of room at the table for everyone, regardless of your background, regardless of what exact skills you have, as long as you have a passion for what we do and you want to be a part of it. So, thank you.
Thank you. What a delightful privilege it must be when the government's like, yeah, we want to offload 20 plus aircrafts, and someone's like, I'm in. And they're like, yeah, you got it. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Our next speaker is Anna Hanson. About a year ago, I was sitting in a meeting with one of my colleagues. He said, have you met Anna Hanson? I said, no. And he said, change that. And I said, okay. And I'm grateful that I did. Over the past year, she's been one of my favorite people to work with and collaborate with across the board. She's come to just about every meeting I've asked her to. We found new avenues to find exciting opportunities together, and she's just overall a delight. So her official bio is she is the Director of Sales at Bytespeed, and having been one of the leading territory managers for the previous 11 years. Anna works diligently to create lasting relationships and forge partnerships that will continue to expand the offerings to better serve Bytespeed's customers. She is a passionate advocate for positive impact of technology and can have, and that impact can have on people it serves, and works hard to find opportunities to be part of that evolution. Her current passion projects include growing esports in public high schools and colleges and bringing flight simulation and drone racing to our schools. Please welcome Anna to the stage.
Well, thank you guys for having me. Super interesting to see. You guys have done a good job of getting all sorts of different organizations up here and people up here and roles. I think back on my own journey, listening to everybody's story. I graduated from high school in eastern Montana. Had no idea what I wanted to do. Kind of floated around trying to find different fits. I was working for a radio station for a couple of years, and I loved what I was doing. The owner of the company said to me, I'm going to get you set up here, and then in a couple of years, you're going to move to North Dakota, and you're going to work for my son selling computers. I said, I don't like computers, and I don't like North Dakota. No offense, everybody. I found out, actually, that I love computers. I'm a total geek. I've never really had very much exposure to it. And I think North Dakota is pretty good. It'll be 19 years in January, so I moved here. He was a very good salesman. So my boss at the previous organization is my current boss's father. So it was kind of an interesting transition over here, and I started very young. Back at that time, Bytespeed was building custom-built PCs, and we were shipping them all over the country, primarily into schools. Big, ugly, beige things. So it was right at the beginning of laptops. Can you imagine a world with no laptop? Well, when they first came out, they weighed 20 pounds, or a lot. It was awful. And they weren't very fast either. I remember the first computers we were building had 128 meg of memory in them. Can you imagine that, you guys? 128 meg. They did not go very fast. It's really, really changed over the years for us as an organization and for me as a person involved in technology. And it's been just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. So kudos to all of you guys that are here because you are interested in something that will continue to evolve and change. And that's been part of the reason that I really love what I do. It has not been the same for 1 year. Every year has been a new challenge, a new opportunity, something completely different than what I would have anticipated. We no longer build big, ugly, beige computers. In fact, now the standard PC that we're selling is about 5 inches by 5 inches, and we're shipping them all over the country, not into just public schools, but into businesses and banks, and everything has changed just drastically. The other thing that's had to happen for us as an organization is we've had to evolve. In technology, if you hold still, everything will pass you by. When I started at Bytespeed, there was hundreds of companies building computers everywhere and shipping them all over the place. And now there's a handful, and we're one of them. The reason I think that we've managed to hold our spot in the marketplace is because we grew and changed and evaluated, made a few mistakes along the way, and invested in things that people were interested in. Esports, how much fun is that? Could you guys imagine, when we started with esports, I wanted nothing to do with it. My boss said, hey, Anna, gaming is a growing market field, and we really need to invest in that. I said, Yeah, I don't think so. I think that's a horrible idea. Now, in my defense, esports at the time was a very consumer-focused conversation. And there were several companies, just like the one that I worked at, that had gone out of business because they had focused on the consumer market. We are, and still to this day, are a B2B company. We sell to schools, banks, businesses, but we don't generally support the consumer market. And I didn't want anything to do with the consumer market because I don't know if you guys remember MPC, Gateway, like Compaq. There's a lot of companies that got a little distracted on their main focus, and they're not here anymore. I wanted to be here, so I'm not doing that. So I went to a conference, ran into an old educator friend of mine. He said, "What's new?" And I said, "Well, we're doing this and this, and oh yeah, and we started a gaming line." He said, "That is the coolest thing that you've ever done." I said, "Yeah, really, why?" So then he started talking to me about gamification of learning. He started talking to me about virtual reality. Virtual reality, really? About how you could take a student who's never left Fargo, North Dakota to the Louvre, how you could dissect a frog in VR, how you could experience things that you can't experience right now. I can't take you into an emergency room and show you what happens in an emergency room, but in VR I can. There's endless opportunities. And with esports, there's endless opportunities for those soft skills Curtis was talking about. More important than you can ever imagine. Being able to communicate, work on a team. What is it when you're in your workforce? You were working on a team. And those skills that you learn in athletics are the same skills you learn in esports. So I rapidly fell in love with the solution, actually, and VR, and the impact that it has. Part of the reason I think that I'm standing up here is that there's a new evolution coming that I'm super excited about, and involves drones and the opportunity that exists with drones. We are at the beginning of something very, very big. We have no idea what that's going to look like in 5 years. Just like I couldn't have told you when I started at Bytespeed that the beige computers would turn into 4-inch, 5-inch little PCs, or that you'd be carrying around a more powerful phone in your pocket than the PC that we were working on at the time. We are at the cusp of something so big and new, it's unbelievable. What your guys' engagement in this space might look like, you never know. How many of you guys like salespeople? A couple people, right? I know nobody does. But what I realized very quickly when I got into this role is, one, that you're all in sales. If you want a job, you better sell that employer on why you're the right fit. If you want your parents to support you in doing something, there's your sales role. There's a million different opportunities. And what sales has turned into for me and for the team that we support is solving problems for people. You don't have to run out there and push things on people. You give them an opportunity. These are the things that I can do. These are the solutions that I'm going to solve. So really, sales is about being a solution provider. Now, how many people like solving problems for people, right? That's a pretty easy thing. Like, I like helping people. So there's a tremendous opportunity in that space. One of the things that's been kind of high on my list lately, I had quite a few new employees starting, and they asked, well, what do you need to be successful here? And it's not what you would think. I can teach people everything they need to know about the solutions, everything they need to know about the IT, everything that they need to support the systems. But there's 3 things that you need really to be successful. And the first one is discipline, right? Those are the skills you're learning in school. Those are the things you're doing every day, getting up, coming in, and doing that. You have to figure out a routine, and you have to figure out how to get from start to finish. Doesn't matter what you're majoring in, doesn't matter what your job is, doesn't matter what your focus is. You got to stay on task and keep going. There's a lot of distractions out there. Discipline to stay doing what you're doing is unbelievably important. Second thing I would say is integrity. Be a good person. Then you don't have to apologize. Do the right thing. Showing up for people and just making good decisions and being a good person is one of the most valuable things that you could possibly have in your life. And if you operate with that, with an integrity in the background on who you are, you don't have to make very many apologies. The last thing I would tell you is resilience. And resilience cannot be understated enough. Life is hard for all of us. Everybody that you know, and it's not even that work is hard, although sometimes your boss is a jerk, your coworker is a jerk, the kid sitting next to you in class is picking his nose, and you have to sit there and try to focus while that's happening. There's so many things that are going on that are stressful, right? Everybody's a little bit stressed out. I will tell you, the resilience is you got to get up the next day and keep going. when you're at home, you're going to have all these things happen, and to be able to put them aside and do your job every day is going to be key to your success. The people that I see make it in our organization to the next level that continue, a lot of times when they don't, it has nothing to do with their ability to do the job. It has everything to do with their resilience, with them being able to function through life and still come in and do the job when life is happening all in the background. And their girlfriend's calling, and she's really stressed out, and she had a bad day at work, and now it's your fault, so fix it. But you still got something you need to be doing. So, thank you guys very, very much for having me, and look forward to talking to y'all more.
Thank you. Every speaker is fantastic. Digging it. Wonderful. So, I'm very tickled. I keep writing down questions as the speakers are talking, and they're answering my questions as they're talking, so I have to come up with new ones for later, but that's all right. Our next speaker is Aaron Sykes. He's the STEM Outreach Coordinator for the National Center for Autonomous Technologies. NCAT is an NSF, Advanced Technological Education Center, focused on skilled technical workforce development for emerging autonomous technologies and adjacent industries. Aaron serves as the president of the Minnesota chapter of Association of Uncrewed Vehicle Systems International and holds FAA certificates for crewed and uncrewed aircraft. Aaron brings knowledge and experience in building and operating uncrewed vehicles and nationwide selection of connections in UAV industry. Please join me in welcoming Aaron Sykes.
Thank you. That actually makes it sound like I know what I'm doing, and the truth is I have no idea. So, first of all, thank you very much for the chance to be here. Before we start, I don't know who I'm talking to. So who here is a high school student? A few of y'all? All right. And who here is a 2-year student? A bunch of you. Awesome. That's kind of where my heart lies. And then who here is at a 4-year school? Okay, right on. So first of all, Aaron Sykes, STEM outreach coordinator. You might have screwed up Ruchi. I know. You got to add the art in there for some really specific reasons.
It's wrong on here.
Oh, Ruchi. Fair enough. So what I'm going to do today is talk to you a little bit about why I do what I do, how I got to what I do, and then the potential opportunity for you guys on the crowd, right? So the why I do what I do, because I think that's super important to start with. I have a very strong belief that autonomous technology has the ability to make people's lives better. And my purpose for being here today is to specifically talk with you about how you can use your unique experiential background to do that mission of making people's lives better using robotics, autonomous technology, or remotely piloted vehicles. So a little bit about where I'm from and how I got here. The first thing you're going to notice is it is all over the map. I grew up in Wisconsin. I grew up loving airplanes. And I grew up in a construction family. So got a lot of really good opportunities early on to run heavy equipment, to be around a lot of really great people. Went up to the University of North Dakota, learned how to fly airplanes. Got my private pilot's license, loved it. I got my bill for my private pilot's license and decided I needed a new major. So ended up graduating with entrepreneurship and airport management degrees. Had a chance to work with Dakota Venture Group when I was up there as well. We were in that first session. Emily is a graduate. She also gives us a shout out. We were a student-run venture capital group based out of UND. From there, I went to the Air Force Academy and worked as a civilian contractor for 2 years for Department of Homeland Security, and then transitioned back up here to Minneapolis. Worked for Thomson Reuters doing sales. Everybody is a salesman. I was not a great salesman for Thomson Reuters, but I tried. And then after that, I had a really unique opportunity to actually work with my dad, who's here today, and we did conservation construction for about 8 or 9 years. We took the company that he had been running for a very long time, transitioned it to focus on something that was near and dear to my heart, which is conservation environmentalism. And then I got this job opportunity with NCAT. We slowly transitioned out of that, and now I work for full-time for NCAT doing STEM outreach. And so National Center for Autonomous Technologies is funded through National Science Foundation. I've still got 5 minutes left, we're good. Is funded through National Science Foundation, and it's focused on skilled technical workforce development. So look at your associates 2-year schools through the autonomous spectrum, right? We're talking air, land, and sea. And so my job on a day-to-day basis is go out and do stuff like this, as well as talk to schools and get content and curriculum into those schools. We have a great partner with NDSCS. We actually did some really cool work with them in Nevada this past fall. So that's kind of how I got to where I am. And now I'm really going to talk about the value. So I think we can all agree that is an all over the map path to get to where I'm at now. Never thought I'd be in education, never thought I'd be working for National Science Foundation or even a two-year school, right? But I truly strongly believe that autonomous technology has that purpose to make people's lives better. And the one thing that I would really challenge everybody in this room is your specific, unique background and experiences make you uniquely qualified to use this autonomous technology to fit your future. Drones, autonomous tech, air, land, and sea, whatever you want to call it, is fundamentally an enabling technology. Software engineer left. Bummer. Okay, fair enough. But I'm not going to be him, and I'm never going to be him. He's fantastic, very smart, but a very few of the people that are using your computers are software engineers, are computer science background, right? Drones, because of what they can do, they give data to a whole spectrum of use cases that previously had no data. And that allows you to look at things in a really unique way, right? You can be, when I go into rooms like this and talk to the PhD candidates, to talk to the aerospace engineers, they care way more about my construction experience than any drone that I've ever flown. Who here has driven a skid steer, excavator, tractor, heavy machinery, right? There's that, you all know what I'm talking about, even though it's gonna sound weird. There's that moment right before it's getting greasy, it's getting wet outside, you wanna make another few runs, and there's that little feeling in your butt where you know it's gonna start sliding, right? But you're like, no, I got this. And it's that one moment in time, and that's what those engineers care about, right? Because that's an experiential background that they don't have. And so the one thing that I've seen in my career so far, I guess I did skip over some stuff, not terribly prepared this one, is that I had a chance to go to Africa right before COVID. I spent 2 months over there flying in Zambia and Kenya, Makushi in Zambia, and then up near the Masai Mara in Kenya for agricultural drones. And the one thing that's really exciting about drone technology careers is that it gets you into places that you would never otherwise be qualified to go to, right? So I do some contract work with the Minnesota DNR. We fly fawn count. So we go out to St. James, Minnesota and fly thermal camera drones from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., 10 a.m., looking for these little baby fawns so that their PhD candidates can do research on that data. That used to be a team of 10 to 15 people that would walk through these places in the middle of the day looking for a 5-day-old fawn whose only purpose in life is not to be found, right? And so looking at the time, I think we're about done, but 2 full minutes. Oh gosh, I don't have 2 full minutes of content. But I guess what I would say is really, if you look at what you want to do, there are amazing applications of autonomous technologies in that use case. An underwater rover just discovered a month and a half ago, the first, what do they call it? They called it a octopus nursery. Google it, it's the coolest thing. They're using it to find, wrecks, they're using it to do all this amazing stuff. And especially for this 2-year students, use what you know to create something new in an exciting space. And that I really think is where, the big problems are gonna happen, and it's gonna be you with your world experience that really is gonna solve it. The other thing that we do is we're based up at Northland Community Technical College over in Thief River Falls. And if you want to go wrench on airplanes for Northrop Grumman, they're begging us to send them graduates, and we don't have enough graduates to send them. Advanced air mobility, flying cars, it's all over the map, and it's nothing but opportunity. So take a look at it, be creative, and there's definitely an application for what you're interested in.
Our next speaker is Dr. Anna Maria Hillman. Is it Hillman or Heilman? Heilman. Man, 50-50, I lost. All right. She's a plant scientist with an extensive experience in academic and seed industry agricultural data management research. In her current role, she leads a team of data scientists and software engineers in the development and implementation of innovative data management and analytical strategies for North Dakota State University Agricultural Experiment Station. She holds a PhD in plant sciences from NDSU, a master's in biological sciences from the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez, nice, and a bachelor's from the Universidad de Valle, Colombia. Her goal is to support the development of automated data tools and analytical solutions to modernize the NDAES agricultural digital solutions, focusing on integrating data management practices, statistical analysis, machine learning, and data coming from remote sensing technologies. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Anna Maria Hillman.
Well, thank you very much for being here today. As you said, my name is Anna Hillman, and I am very glad and happy to be here, so thank you. So I just want to talk really quickly in here, how many people do we have in STEM that is currently in their second year, or third year, fourth year, or is in high school? Just want to kind of have a little idea. Don't be shy. There we go. Awesome. So we need to bridge the gap between the agriculture and technology, and it's very, very important. That's why all of us are in here trying to kind of like bridge that gap, right? So with that, we will be able to ensure in the global food security, addressing the problems that we are really having with global climate change. Also, create sustainable practices, as well as create the next development in precision agriculture that will help us to innovate in the crop and livestock management. I don't know if you can see the colors very well in there, but I just want you to see in here particularly that in the next 10 years, we will have a 10.8% growth in STEM careers. And the salaries, or the median annual wage for the people that is on STEM careers, is way higher compared to non-STEM careers. Now, in the career opportunities, you can see in here we have a list of all the Ag STEM careers and the Ag Tech. Some of the careers that are standing out at this moment and that they will continue to go is precision agriculture, remote sensing, agricultural software development, biotechnology. But then one important thing that I want you to consider about is think about your path. And your path is very unique to yourself. In my case, I am the third generation going to college from Colombia. My family is mostly in business and also in pretty much they went to law school. And when I decided to be a biologist, my grandma looked at me like, no, you're not. And I said, yes, I am. So then I trusted my guts and I said, I'm going to be the best that I can do. I went from studying biology, I went to an international center for tropical agriculture in Colombia. In there, it was like being at the United Nations almost. I was finding every single person that was amazing, and they nurtured me. I found really good mentors, and that's the reason why I'm here today talking in front of you. Then from there, I went to University of Puerto Rico. One of the first things that I did as a biologist, I say I really want to be a marine biologist. Then I learned that my passion was more with the plants, and then I ended up working with a root crop in Puerto Rico and also in Colombia that is called cassava. And that root crop feeds people in Africa, in some countries in there, some in Asia as well, and in South America. From there, I met my advisor here in North Dakota State University. He saw me when I was in my first semester in my master's program. And he said, let me know when you finish. Come to North Dakota. At that time, I didn't have any clue where North Dakota was in the map. But for sure, I started thinking about okay, when I get out of the master's, I want to go for a PhD. PhD careers are not for everyone, but certainly I had in my mind that that's what I wanted to do. So that's why I came here to North Dakota State. I did a PhD in plant breed and genetics, and that was a fantastic, fantastic opportunity for me. Because from there, I was working with a lot of data, particularly for that degree. I went to work for the biggest biotechnology company in the world, one of the biggest seed companies. I went to the headquarters, and that was my first job out of school. So I was like, yes, I did it. So then think about yourself all the time. what you want to do, and you can get there. Finally, in 2016, I decided to come back to Fargo, North Dakota. I was adopted by a beautiful family here in this area, as well as in Minnesota, so we decided to come back up north, and I am very happy. So one message that I can tell you today is your growth is your responsibility, nobody else's. Find mentors, and then, take decisions, be bold. One thing that I always tell people, think about your purpose. And maybe this will sound kind of like a funny, but it's real. Think about what you love, think about what the world needs from you, think about what you can be paid for, and what are you good at. And then you will find in the intersection of all that, you will find your real purpose in life. Now, I contacted many people from the industry before I came here today, and I asked them, tell me about what you're looking for in the future. And do we have high school professors in here, or high school teachers, or professors? Thank you. I want you to see this. This came from the leads that are in those 500 companies, and they say exactly the same. I asked people from Bayer, from Corteva, from Syngenta, from John Deere. I contacted all of them, and they say empathy and advanced communication skills. Haven't we said that again and again and again? So work on them, develop them, take classes, go and find a mentor. Strong foundations on STEM subjects, absolutely important. It doesn't matter in which level are you going to be working, it's important to understand that. Problem solving, critical thinking. That's something that we need to start working very early since the kids are 5 years old. Data analysis and interpretation, super important. So if you don't know it, there's tons of classes that you can take. Please go ahead and start being more aware about the data analytics world. Negotiation skills. When your kids come and say, hey, mommy, I want this, and you remember not to say no immediately. Remember to say, what are you going to be doing to earn that? So then that will help them to develop those negotiation skills. When you tell somebody no, you are damaging that negotiation skills in there. So then something to think about. Programming and coding skills. That's what we need to do right now. We are in a different world, and then that skill is super important. Business. Learn about business and ag management if you are in the ag world. Obviously, that's super important. And lastly, but not least, adaptability and willingness to learn. So, one of my very good friends, Megan Lewis, she is from North Dakota. I brought her a couple of, it was about a year ago, and I asked her, I want you to share your path with other people. And one of the learning lessons that she always repeats as a mantra is don't be worried. You can be green and growing. So green and growing should be in your mindset. I am 43 and I'm happy, and it's a number. So just think about it. How are you going to grow? It doesn't matter if you are 17 or you are 43 or you are 50 or 60 or 80. So then develop those soft skills are super necessary. Embrace mentorship. I am always finding mentors. In a lifetime, you might have mentors that are going to help you in the communication skills, in the business, in the STEM. Find them and approach them. I bet you money that they will be able to say, yes, absolutely, I would like to be your mentor. Now, teamwork and communication, I think that we have talked about that a lot. It's fundamental. Be curious and never stop learning. My friend Felipe Matias, he is the lead of LATAM for anything related with phenomics and environments. And one thing that he said to me, which I thought that it was really funny, he said, Anna, 80% of getting or landing the job is, your knowledge and your soft skills. But once you get in the job, 80% becomes your soft skills, your ability to communicate with others and the ability to be able to make sure that the work gets done. So, be curious and never stop learning, he said too, because things in the industry change very, very fast. Now, lastly, invest in yourself, invest in your learning. And with that being said, this is my contact information. And thank you very much. Have fun.
We have 2 speakers left before we get to our question and answer. So hopefully you have been writing some of those down. We're looking forward to it. Our next speaker is Scott Meyer. He's an entrepreneur, educator, writer, dad, husband, and runner based in Fargo. He is the founder of Chip.ai, the easiest payment platform for generative AI developers. His energetic, accessible, action-oriented 5-minute AI tutorials move from AI from cool toy to an essential tool. Most recently, Meyer was the VP of Learning at MetaCrafters, building a learn-to-earn platform to prepare students for next-gen jobs, including blockchain development and AI. He is also helping his wife Taylor build a stunning jewelry store in downtown Fargo. Please join me in welcoming Scott to the stage.
Yeah.
It's a great blazer, man. Great blazer. I just got to celebrate it.
Welcome, everyone. I am surprised you're here because right now there is a beard growing competition going on in Germany. So I can tell from the audience, no one participated. Oh, back there, red hat. Not this year. Couldn't make it work. They judge, obviously, on color and cut, different styles. And the fact that a beard growing competition exists and people spend their lives doing this is really weird. But you don't have to go to Germany to find weird things, right? Like you can go just west a little bit to Regent, North Dakota, a small town. A gentleman there saw his small town dying and thought, what could I do? The obvious answer is to build the world's largest Tin Man, right? So Gary Greff started building huge sculptures out of things that were laying around without any support, without the Department of Commerce noticing. And soon that grew into what is known as the Enchanted Highway. So if you ever drive west in North Dakota, you might see the Enchanted Highway now front and center on North Dakota tourism, right? These things take 7 years to develop. He did it by himself on the high school gym floor that was closed, right? This is weird. What we are living in is a moment where weird is incredibly good. And I would argue that all of us are very, very weird. And I want you to lean into that. You've heard that today from a number of speakers, right? Your experiences, whether it's driving a skid steer or your interest in watermelon or, driving airplanes, like whatever the weird thing is you have, you need to develop and inculcate that. And we live in this moment right now where normal is replicable. So I spend my days working with artificial intelligence and AI, and people are always asking, is AI going to take my job? The answer is AI is not going to take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI is going to take your job, right? And that could be you. And that could be you. And if you know how to drive a skid steer and use AI, very few people are going to have those skills. If you know how to create 140-foot tall tin men and use AI to design those, very few people are going to take your job, right? If you're able to develop a passion to learn what you want with AI, you're going to go far. And I think that's the power of this moment. We live in the greatest opportunity for us to compete and to learn from wherever you are with just a few keystrokes. So my journey is obviously very weird because I'm a weird guy, right? So I got my master's degree over in Norway. I vagabonded around Europe. I thought that I would be a diplomat. In the meantime, I created a tech tool to connect people that were doing research around the world and got into tech. So I started a company. I was on city council, had a bunch of failed companies. I exited that company, got into higher ed, and I was teaching people online. And because of that, people started to hire me to create courses. I was personally really interested in AI and tech, so I started writing about how does education get affected by Web3 and AI, and not very many people were talking about that. So I got into really weird rooms. All of a sudden I was talking to the World Bank, to the United Nations about the future of decentralized education and AI. I had very few credentials to do that, except the fact that I thought about it and shared it. And that led to this moment now where I started a company called Chip. We basically make it easy for people to launch AI apps and provide the payment infrastructure. So we sit on top of Stripe to allow people to charge every time you're asking a question instead of every month. And the reason that I got to this point is just because I had been exploring weirdness, right? That I'd been looking in these weird places and sharing. And so if you have something that's weird or you want to develop something weird, the key lesson today is that you need to build in public. So building in public is simply the idea of sharing what you're doing along the way. Because the fact is, the hardest part of starting a company, of going into a career, is getting someone to buy the thing, right? We've heard about sales a number of times here today. So what you need to think about is how do you develop a community of supporters, of collaborators, of curious individuals that will support you and be there when you're ready. And that community is actually going to tell you about opportunities, about things that need to get built, about what you want to do. You know, if you host a party on Friday or Saturday night, you don't just plan the party before you invite people. First you tell everyone to come, and then when you get word that people are actually coming, you actually have to go buy the stuff, right? If you're hosting a birthday party for your kids, you send out the RSVP, and if everyone says no, you don't have to plan it. It's a great win. But you need to sell first and then build, right? So how do you do that? You go out and you start talking or writing or thinking about the thing that you want to do, and you share it, right? So when I started thinking about the future of education and AI, I just started writing blog posts, putting up social media content. People found it, shared it, and I started asking questions and meeting really interesting people. If you want to work in the UAV industry, what you're going to do is start talking about it, right? Start putting up posts about it, start thinking about it, start connecting with some of the people you might hear. Start building that community and hearing what their problems are so you can start to build. And so building in public, learning in public is your chance to cut to the front of the line. You know, right now in school, you're going to submit your homework, your papers to a teacher. But that information should be shared with the world, right? That teacher can grade you and tell you what they think, but there's millions of people out there who are weird and into the thing you're into. So maybe it's better as a Reddit thread, right? Maybe it's better as a LinkedIn post. Maybe it's better as a YouTube video or a TikTok. How can you start sharing information and building so that you build your own enchanted highway? So you start building your own beard, right? Because there's weirdos just like you out in the world. You just have to find them. You know, for a kid like me, I grew up in Brookings, South Dakota. You know, you could do track, football, basketball, right? And now you think about the chance to race drones, you think about the chance to grow cool watermelon, and you think about the chance to just go onto ChatGPT and ask for anything you want to learn. So with AI, there's this incredible concept, this incredible power called the AI sandwich. You as a human need to direct this process. It always starts with the human, the top of the bread, right? And then AI is going to give you something, the meat, but then on the bottom you have to use it, edit it, and repurpose it. So AI is not going to give you the exact thing you need, but you can direct the process and use it to power your ideas. So think about what you want to learn, what you want to build, what your weird thing is. Go learn about it, go build in public, because then you'll find opportunity. So hopefully I can help you do that along the way. I was excited, one of my former students back here just learned that she's moving to Thailand, a great example of how just starting will lead to opportunities. So say yes to those weird things. When you get old like me, you can look backwards and figure out how the dots connect. But I think right now, just start making dots and doing things, and you'll figure out what that path is. Thanks.
All right. Our last speaker of the day, before we get into question and answer time, is Alex Salisbury. Alex graduated from the University of North Dakota in 2018, where he majored in both commercial and unmanned aviation. He currently works in the Unmanned Operations Specialist at Weather Modification International in Fargo, North Dakota. In addition to supporting manned cloud seeding projects, Alex manages a research project with a goal of using UAS to treat and clear freezing fog in the wintertime. Please join me in welcoming Alex to the stage.
Hi, my name is Alex, and as we just heard, I work for a company called Weather Modification here in Fargo. Our home office is up at the airport. If you've ever flown out of here, you've looked off to the north side of the airport, you've seen some hangars being built and a building with a big radar dome on top. Well, that's us. Hi. We don't control the weather. We just ask it very, very nicely to maybe do things a little bit more of what we'd like. For example, what we're doing with this drone right here is we're hoping to find a way to take freezing fog in the wintertime. You know, it's when you're driving down the highway, you look out your radio antenna, you see a bunch of ice stacking up on it, flies off, you know, hits the guy behind you, leaves a big dent sometimes. The goal is to use a drone much like this and our seeding material to disperse that, to turn that freezing fog into ice crystals that will just fall to the ground as like a light snowfall. Fog goes away, visibility comes back, you can see the truck in front of you. It's a good day. I got my start at Weather Modification by going to the University of North Dakota for manned aviation. While I was there, one of our professors in the atmospheric science department had a note at the end of his syllabus that said cloud seeding and weather modification. And it sounded really cool. Wanted to know more about it. Waited all semester until we got to the day we were supposed to talk about it. We walked into class and he goes, "Yeah, we don't have time for it. We're not going to deal with that." Yeah, exactly. It was a bit of a bummer. So I went up to afterwards and I talked to him and I said, "Hey, this sounded really cool. I kind of want to know more about this. Where can I find more about it?" And he said, well, there's this whole other class you can take, this other professor. Look into it, sign up for it. There's even an internship there for you if it's something you're interested in. So I took the class, learned about cloud seeding. The gist of it is, like I said, we're just asking weather very, very nicely to do things a little bit more what we would like. So things, for example, like when there's a big thunderstorm moving through an agriculture area like western North Dakota, we have a project there that's focused on reducing the amount of hail that a thunderstorm will produce and increasing the amount of rain a thunderstorm will produce. It's a really cool project. So I went through, took this class, really enjoyed learning about it, really enjoyed the concepts of it. Signed up for the internship. So if you've ever had the inclination to light an airplane on fire and fly it through a thunderstorm, this internship is 100% for you. It's a lot of fun. You go in a lot of really cool, really weird places, and you get a lot of really good stories out of it. That brought me to where I am today. I was going through University of North Dakota, got into drones as well. Flying RC helicopters was always fun. Looked into different ways that I could add unmanned aviation to my future. Discovered the drone program that was there. It was really similar to the manned aviation classes I was taking. So I added that to my classes, took some classes, and now we're here. And now I'm using drones to figure out how to make fog go away, which is not something I ever thought would even be possible, much less something that I would be looking into. The last couple years for this project has been a lot of back and forth with the FAA. Obviously, trying to fly drones in fog where you can't see where the drone is, where you can't see where it's going. It's all new technology. It's all new ideas, new concepts. So it's been a lot of negotiation with the FAA, back and forth, trying to figure out how can we do this safely? What can we do to mitigate the risks that this type of operation will present to the areas that we're flying? It took about 2 years. This last year, they gave us the okay, and we had some flights, and spent a lot of cold days standing out in a little field north of Kindred, North Dakota, flying the drone around this field, building ice and collecting data. And we're hoping the next year to figure out a way to mount our materials to it so we can start treating fog when it happens and seeing if we can actually generate that clearing that we want to see, trying to start generating those ice crystals and improving that visibility. My apologies. My background is not in public speaking. My background is 100% in operations and manned and unmanned aircraft. Sure. So the manned project we have in western North Dakota runs for about 3 months. If anyone is interested in aviation, weather, any sort of aspects like that, going through the University of North Dakota. Class, the internship, it's a great opportunity to get exposed to, like I said, just weather, new types of flying. The goal is to reduce the amount of hail that is output in a thunderstorm. And you can do that by 2 ways. We have one airplane that will fly right underneath the developing region of a thunderstorm. You get some really cool views. It's a really unique place to fly an airplane, really. You disperse some material. It's an artificial ice crystal that gets pulled into the thunderstorm, into the developing regions, and the idea is to convert what's the liquid water that is there but is below zero into ice crystals. The goal is to generate more ice crystals, to essentially keep generating more ice crystals to try to prevent the formation of really large hailstones. So you can think about it as if you take like a bottle of water and you stick it in the freezer. When it's full, you have that huge chunk of ice. And if you take it and if you chucked it at a car windshield, well, it's going to go straight through the windshield. Cloud seeding, the goal is to take that same amount of water and kind of pour it into an ice cube tray. So instead of having one giant chunk of ice, you now have a small handful of ice chunks. So if you take that same volume of water but pour it into an ice cube tray, the same thing. You know, chucked it out a windshield, what's going to happen? It's all going to bounce off. It's going to melt. It's not going to cause any issues. And that's the essence of what we do over the summer, trying to prevent hail damage to crops, vehicles, property damage, roadways, infrastructure, anything that would be damaged by a huge chunk of ice flying at it at about 200 miles an hour, including me. Small ice chunks are a lot less scary to fly through than large ice chunks. So the big one is the company aircraft. This is the one that we partnered with Botlink to buy. We sent them the specifications. They figured out exactly what they need to do to meet our specifications, and we gave them the okay, and they built it. The little one over here was part of my journey to get here. One of the classes at the University of North Dakota I took was actually building a drone from the ground up. You defined your mission, you defined what you needed an aircraft to do to serve that mission. You went out, you found the parts, you learned the process of putting it together, small electronics, batteries, a little bit of structural engineering, some more destructive testing rather, and just trying it again and again until you got it right. And so that's what this little one is here. It was an old class project that's still functional, still fun to fly. The mission I defined for it was aerial photography. It's the camera, the gimbal, and it's just been an ongoing project since I graduated. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time.
Okay, so it's totally cool to feel nervous up here. Sometimes we just fake it until we make it, as some of us are doing a pretty good job at that. So now is the time for our Q&A. It is a very interactive session. I encourage you all to ask whatever questions you have. Do not think any question is stupid, because we all have to start somewhere, right? Maybe you have a smarter question that I wanted to ask about, but maybe I didn't. So please feel free, whatever questions you have. These are people who are here to help you out, to support you, and help you in your journeys. So I'll request all the speakers to please come over on the stage, and Curtis and I will move the mics around.
Oh, you stay up here with them, and I'll move around the audience.
Okay. We will have lunch shortly after 12:30, and again, be more colorful, and NDSCS folks are here. Make sure you hang out with them, meet with all the cool folks there. So, does anybody...
So, we have 2 mics, so I give one for those 4, one for these 4, and I'll go out in the audience.
Okay, perfect. Just FYI, on the slide, we have the contact information for everybody here. So if you want, take a picture of that, or I'll be more than happy to send out all this information. And we have a question right here.
This is for Alex. I'm an instrument-rated pilot, and I've flown in conditions where the ice would build up on a small plane in a matter of minutes. I've also had certification as a drone pilot, and I know that the FAA doesn't want to have flight beyond line of sight. Okay, and I've also been up to the Weather Modification International facilities at the Fargo Airport, and their weather modification planes generally are twin-engine, rather large, heavy, capable of doing serious damage to a car if, in fact, it happened to be a drone flying along and got overcome by ice. Tell me about your relationship with the FAA.
Yeah, absolutely. Our unmanned project this is the only unmanned aircraft we have at the moment. And part of that mitigation strategy that we talked about was how do we prevent that damage from happening if our research aircraft over here became encumbered with ice, too much so to fly. And so how we did that was we found a field just north of Kindred, North Dakota that was actually property of our sister company. And that's where we do our flying. We're able to make sure there's no one else on the field when we're flying. And if the drone ices up and crashes, we can guarantee you that the only thing damaged is this drone and my feelings. Does that answer your question?
Well, I'll come to you. Oh, here you go.
I can yell out quick.
Very
Scott,
good.
one veteran to another, could you talk about your military career occupation and how that translates to what you're doing now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I said, most of my career was in procurement. And so the traditional path for folks that did that was to do it outside the uniform, either as a government civilian doing the same job on the government side, or a lot of folks switching over to defense contractors and just being on the other side of the contract from the government. So that's the normal path. I guess was laid out for me that most people follow. In my case, I enjoyed procurement. I enjoyed what I was doing, but I wanted to do more. And so that's where I started really looking for opportunities, which several other speakers have spoken about, but I'm just looking for opportunities that I could use those skills that I developed, and not just the I know how to buy things skills, but those soft skills and the problem solving skills and all those other skills that you figure out, and the technical knowledge I learned in engaging with folks, and look for opportunities to do more. And again, in my particular case, I was able to rise to lead all support across the base, to include purchasing, but many, many other facets as well. And then kind of was able to do that, for a defense contractor as well. And really, when you think about what Grand Skye is right now, it's building a miniature Air Force base, truly. So it's connected to the runway of Grand Forks Air Force Base, actually on Grand Forks Air Force Base property, which is a long story. But we truly are building facilities and hangars and just everything you need from the ground up. And so really able to, by saying yes to a lot of the opportunities I was given, and kind of creating a weird little niche skill set for myself, was able to find an employer that was looking for that small niche. And I was able to fill it and really enjoy it. Thank you.
Can I follow up with that question? And this is for everybody, for whoever would like to answer. We have a really neat spectrum of speakers today with different educational and life backgrounds. I'm just curious, a lot of you have talked about skills. We heard some of those durable skills I brought up earlier show up a few times today. And my question is, with all these young people in the audience, where would you point them to get those, right? We've heard the idea of mentorship. I brought up, 4 and 2-year universities, but I don't think those are it. So help us paint a picture of where people can go to cultivate and nurture those skills, if you could, whoever.
I guess I'll jump in first and then hand off. I think Anna and Scott in particular did a great job of listing out a lot of those skills, which totally makes sense. But from my perspective, I think a formal education can certainly play a role. Kind of stand on the shoulders of giants and learn from others and what they've done before. Certainly having a good mentor, mentors, plural, they can help kind of coach you and guide you on your own personal journey, I think is a great thing. But the other piece I'll just throw out there, and I think it was Scott or Anna that said it, but be bold. Just go out there and just get your hands dirty and try crazy things. And what I've shared with a lot of folks through the years is it's okay to fail. If you go out and you attempt something really easy, you're probably going to succeed. But if you go out and you try something that's difficult, that's something that's never been done before, maybe you've never done before, odds are you're going to fail. That's just the reality of it. But by going through that process and coming up with your plan and executing your plan, you learn a lot. And then when it goes horribly awry, which I've done many, many times in my life, then you can look back and go, why did it go horribly awry? And you can garner more lessons from it. And so I'd say, in addition to those other things, just be bold, get your hands dirty, and just go out there and try things, and you'll learn, for sure.
I know I didn't come to school as a traditional way. After I graduated from a college, I worked for 11 years until I came back to graduate school. So I would think the number one thing, if I were you, I would say passionate. You really have to like what you do and do what you like. If you don't have that passion and you like something else, go, there's so many things. But if if there is something you particularly like, stay on it. So persistent, consistent, pursue your dream. And my experience that if that's what you want to do, you will be successful. Nothing can stop you. I think a lot of you are much smarter than me, because when I was in college, my classmates they're in their 18s and 20s. I was in my 30s. Language is also a barrier, but I like what I do, so that's why I'm here. I don't consider myself as successful, but I really like what I do. Thank you.
Hey, well, I would just say, I'll tell you guys a secret, actually. I'm actually an introvert, right? The only introverted salesperson you would ever meet. I didn't have a big group of friends. I never raced for the stage, nothing. But as I got a little older, I realized that the people that were super successful, and I wanted to be super successful. I was smart, but they all got out there. They talked to people. They seemed to be extroverts. So I decided, well, hey, I'm not going to let this screw me up. So now I'm an extrovert. I'm still really not. Like, I was saying down there, oh my God, my heart, every time I'm on stage or talking, I'm the boardroom girl. Get me in a small little area, I can talk to the end of time. Put me on stage, I'm like, oh God, this is crazy. But I wasn't going to let that define my success. So what you tell yourself is really the reality of the situation. If you're not a little uncomfortable, you're not growing. We've heard a few different people say, hey, learn, learn, learn. I'm still learning. I'm still learning ways to do this. One of the things I learned is that if I got on stage, I would also get up. I was just fine. It didn't really matter at the end of the day. So now I know I can do this. Last week I was at a banking conference and they had a moment, they said, hey, you can go up there and introduce your company. And I had this moment of, yeah, I think I don't need to do that. And then I had to tell myself, Anna, you're the sales director of the company. Get your butt up on that stage. And I literally had to talk myself through that. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. None of that has changed for me. But you got to put yourself out there if you want to be successful. And it's hard. When I met this gentleman here, he had reached out to me. He just said, hey, I think what you're doing is really interesting. I have no idea how he found my contact information, but he was putting himself out there, asking questions and introducing himself. It's hard to do. If you're like me, your heart's probably pounding. I bet he was a little bit nervous when he made that call. I also bet he's made a bunch of calls like that, and I'm not the only one. And he's now running an organization because he took the step to put himself out there. There's so many amazing opportunities. You can change the weather. Are you kidding me, you guys? Really? They're changing the weather. That was a given, that you were not going to be able to do that. Northrop Grumman, I toured a couple months ago. Oh my gosh, you guys. 30 hours in the air. Where could you go in 30 hours? And they're not going slow. 30 hours. Where can you travel in 30 hours? The world that we're living in is changing so quickly, and there's so much opportunity. You will never be bored, ever, 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 if you follow down this pathway. It's just such a tremendous opportunity, and I would just encourage all of you guys to just be uncomfortable.
Only two things I'd add is find your community of weirdos, right? Like, and for two really specific reasons. The first one is you don't feel self-conscious if you're so excited about what you're doing, right? Like, I did a drone community stuff back in the Twin Cities, and the first time I flew a racing drone, if you guys ever flown FPV, it's an old analog system. You can't see a chain link fence. I put a racing drone through a chain link fence going like 60 miles an hour. The thing like shredded, right? But you don't feel like an idiot because everybody else there is so excited about what's happening, right? And then the other really nice part about doing that, especially if it's tied to like your career, you get really good at talking to those kinds of people, right? That group was a lot of engineers, and because we were both excited to talk about drones, we both got really good at talking to people like each other. So that's my 2 cents.
I'll give 2 things you can do today to make it super tactical. So first thing is, next time you go order a drink at a coffee shop or a bar, ask for it for free, because we're really scared to ask for things. So this is something I always did in my entrepreneurship classes. Just go ask for something ridiculous. They'll probably tell you no, and now you're getting practice hearing no, which you're gonna hear a lot. But they might say yes, and you got a free coffee or free beer, whatever it is. So go do that first. Secondly, put up a video on TikTok or Instagram or whatever social media you use, and ask people, tell people what you want to do, and tell them to DM you or comment to connect. And what you're going to figure out is, first of all, it's really hard to get people to care. So that's like the sales thing, right? How do you get people to care about things you're excited about? And then if they do respond, you get practice into hearing what they want to do, so you can start to build something together. So 2 things you can do before lunch, probably.
Yeah, I would just like to add a few things, and this is more so pertaining to high school and college students. I think that everyone here is underestimating themselves, and I'm not saying this because I want you to drop out of school and take a trade, but in 5 months, I went from not knowing how to code to becoming a software developer and had a job lined up. Now think about how long 5 months is. That's a semester. And you can take a break and do that. So there's this quote that I love, and it's, you overestimate what you can do in a week and underestimate what you can do in a month. So don't just give up on your weird little things because 1 week it goes bad or 2 weeks it goes bad. Keep at it, and I'm sure in 3 months, you'll become an expert on that field and you'll be making Reddit posts all day long. Yeah, so I went through a coding boot camp. It's hosted by the parent company that also runs Grand Farm. And 5 months, I went from not knowing how to code to knowing how to code and landed a job, and now I'm here a year later. So you can do so much in a year. So believe in yourselves, try new things, and you'll do great.
I'm coming to you.
To thank you all for the advice. I actually had a specific question for Aaron, mostly as you talked about connecting autonomous educational opportunities to historically marginalized communities, and I think me being laid off and part of a STEM field, I'm definitely looking to reconnect and talk to mentors like all of you suggested. Do you find that there's a gap at all in the younger populations that you've worked with and connecting them with mentors who truly understand some of the bias or prejudice or discrimination or just experience that there is maintaining and nurturing your skills in a workplace? Because as a minoritized community, I found that was one of the major issues in retaining my skills at a company was a lack of mentorship for my personal identity outside of my skills. So I'm interested to see if you've encountered that in your career experience.
Yeah, no, so that's a massive question, right? And I love it, right? So I think there's really kind of 2 things with it. And I'm going to ground it in saying that last year at the Mall of America, we had a massive STEM outreach program called Experience STEAM. And we did a drone entrepreneurship boot camp, right? And a lot of the people, everyone that was part of it was BIPOC students from North, right? And the thing that really struck me was that when the summer camp was set up to do 1 day of this is what drones are, second day this is what like startup concepts, your pitch deck and stuff like that is, day 3 make your own company, right? And so day 3 came, and what was really wild is all these students with completely different life experiences than mine made autonomous technology companies that mirrored their own lived experience, right? And I think that if we're going to talk about social and economic mobility, the idea of engaging traditionally marginalized communities is massively important because it allows this technology to be put into use cases and value propositions that people like me are just never going to think of, right? And then above and beyond that, from a mentorship capacity, and like, please, I hope you took my email. Would love to connect on it because we do a lot of work. I live in Minneapolis, so we do a lot of work South Minneapolis and North Minneapolis. And there's a fundamental need for a community to actually see people with your experience, with your background that look like you, that are doing things that you want to do. And I would say I don't know how to get you a mentor. I know the kid stuff up as far as connecting with mentors. Where are you based out of? Okay, yeah, no, there's a ton of really cool mentors in the Twin Cities. A lot of the Fortune 500s have these really powerful affinity groups that have some really good stuff, and then there's a lot of really, really neat just professional communities in cities. So yeah. Semina.
Yeah, I would just like to add a bit to that. I'm sure everyone here is searching for mentorship or just a simple meeting, and you all have something that won't stay there forever, and that's your status as a student. Now, as a student, you can reach out to virtually anyone, mention that you're a student, and get a meeting with them, because who doesn't love helping students, right? If you're an adult reaching out to them, it may be harder because then they may think you're job seeking. So take this opportunity while you have it and go on LinkedIn and just message everyone you can. Mention that you're a student, write what you're looking for, and they'll be more than happy to set up a meeting with you.
There's another way of getting mentors. The other way is, like doing volunteering work. I know that this sounds a little bit different than the rest of the things that we have discussing here, but there is beautiful mentors that are in volunteering type of lines. So then find those places, find the organizations that you think that will align with your values, that will align with your, like a knowledge. And then I have learned tons of things through those mentors. So I can put you in contact with some of them, and I would be happy.
All right, well, I'll switch up my answer a little bit since they kind of already hit on so much from the mentorship aspect. The other piece I throw out too is research the organizations and figure out what their culture is as well. Because there are some organizations out there that are very diverse and very inclusive and like that and appreciate it. And there's those that aren't as much, right? And having worked in various organizations through the years, I'll say those that do include everyone and make everyone feel like part of the team and leverage their unique skill sets are, first of all, just a better place to work every day. Just the culture is much better. But also from a practical standpoint, they're probably going to be more likely to be the companies that are going to stick around for a while because they're not excluding certain people and certain viewpoints. And so, in addition to looking for mentors, you can really just look at the culture of the organizations you're joining and determine whether their values and their culture aligns with your values and their culture.
I'd like to add just something because we are really privileged and we have a new team member that joined us just a couple of weeks ago, and she's got such an interesting story. She's a person from a very diverse background. She's a new American, but when I first met this young person was actually in January, and she was very strategically going around the community with what Ujjwal said, started with her LinkedIn network and just sent emails to people, said, hey, I would love to get to know about your company and your culture. Honestly, this is exactly what she did. And then she started making herself a spreadsheet. Who did I meet with? What did we talk about? What did I like about that place? Then at the end of every conversation, she'd ask, who else should I talk to? And she would get a link from somebody. Hey, can you connect me with so-and-so? So I met this person in January, and by February, every person in my circle outside of my place of business, right? All of my supporters had met this young lady. Everyone was like, oh, have you met so-and-so? Have you met so-and-so? I'm like, yeah, I met her. I've even seen her spreadsheet. They're like, what? She's got a spreadsheet? And I say that not because this person is the most fantastic person in the world. She is. But more importantly, because everywhere I went, they'd say, hey, did you meet her? And I said, yeah. And they'd be, she would be great on our team. I say that because that intentionality and that purpose and that drive to say, who else should I meet? Taking an hour once a day to try and meet new people and then asking them, who else should I meet in a different business, expanded her network and really made her a very desirable person professionally. Everyone I talked to was very interested in her joining their team. So I say that as an example of something you really truly can do to build on what Ujjwal offered, right? Like you can start that today and always ask, who should I meet next? And I think that can really elevate your opportunities in finding a mentor and finding career prospects. So just a real true experience that's happened the last couple of months with someone that I now enjoy and work with. So what other questions do we have? Hello, coming to you.
Hi everyone, I'm a graduate student at North Dakota State University, and my major is agriculture and biosystems engineering. So me as an agriculture engineer, and I think most of us, we don't have very high programming skills like the computer science engineers or other people have. So what do you think are the career opportunities for ag engineers, especially in the autonomous industry? And sorry. And what skills do you think we need to have a good career in this industry?
Sure. So, microphone here. I'm a faculty and advice system engineer. So, I would think definitely your computer skill is better than mine, and I would think you don't have to be a programmer because a lot of people are very good on programmer, but you are capable. Number one is if you do need to learn or use some of new softwares, you need to be capable of teaching yourself, learn how to do it. And so that's, learning ability is one. Another thing is be open-minded. Don't think that, your skills is less than computer engineers. Actually, the training you have are much broader and stronger, in certain fields than, the computer engineer. So don't limit yourself. And third is realize your limitation. If it's something you can do, no, you can. So there are someone is better, borrow their hand to help you. But, go for it. Don't limit yourself.
If you're not a computer programmer, you're fine, and you're gonna clean up. So, like, the BFD drone that NDSCS has back there, right? That is a massive drone that can lift 54 pounds, which is like up to the max that a small unmanned aircraft system can legally lift, right? That thing's flying probably a Pixhawk flight controller, which is an architecture that's been around for like 14 or 15 years, right? Like, that's an amazing airplane, but I bet it's a Pixhawk.
It's a Pixhawk.
Like when you go to AVSI, which is like the national like trade association for all things unmanned, everybody comes out with these like wild new airframes, and the underlying frame, the technology is all this like 15-year-old Pixhawk, which in the world of computers is kind of old, right? Not to mention the fact that the user interface is an open source software that like you don't need to know anything. Sorry. I'm not saying you don't need to know anything about coding. I'm just saying like we're transitioning from out of 4-year, like when I first started flying drones, right? Getting the thing in the air was wild. The first drone that I built was called a Wii drone. Did you make one of those? It was we literally used the digital accelerometer out of Nintendo Wii paired with an Arduino to get the thing to fly, right? Like getting that thing in the air was metric of success. And not, yeah. And so like now it's transitioning to what value can you create in industry? It's a tool. It's no different than a laptop. It's no different than anything else. And so your specific skill set in your educational background, like you get to tell everybody how to use the tool. And that's the place to be, right? I know, that's my 2 cents.
I'll just tell you too, Scott said earlier, look at the companies, research the companies that you're interested in, and then if they have openings, apply for them. Even if they don't look like what you think you're qualified for. My partner relationship manager, his job is to line up strategic partnerships like networking manufacturers with the sales team, get them resources, and he's responsible for their success in our organization. He is a graduate, his name's Clever McCory, he's a graduate from the Code Academy. He does nothing with coding now, nothing. And when he started the interview with me, he had been referred back through network. A part of one of his mentors had said, you should really talk to this guy. I think he'd be a good fit. And I respect him immensely. And so I said, all right, well, I'll talk to him. But in my mind, was like, he's not the guy that I'm looking for. He's young. He just graduated. I had in my head he wasn't right. So I started the conversation with him. I don't think that this guy, I didn't want to get his hopes up. I don't know. Within 20 minutes, I was like, well, okay, you can come to lunch with me and a couple of my guys, and we'll just see. His ability to communicate and his passion and his willingness to prove that he was going to be a good fit for the role, I've never regretted for a second hiring the guy. He's brilliant. And so I would say he knew he wanted to work for us because one of his mentors, a good friend of mine, said, hey, this is a good company with a good culture and you'll be happy there. And he didn't care how he got in. Now, he happens to be perfect at his job, but you wouldn't have known it on paper. So look at those organizations that are doing transformational things that you are interested in or excited about, and apply. Even if it doesn't look like it might be the right, get your foot in the door and go, because you might be blown away.
Just have a little story for you, because you are in grad school right now. So then when you graduate, you feel a little scared and you don't feel prepared for the workforce. Guess what? Like when I landed my first job, I applied for one job. One. And that was the job that I got. And the fun part of that is like I am a plant breeder, and I was landed in a data manager role. So I was like, yes, I know how to work with data, I know how to analyze it, but I don't code. That's what I was telling them. Then don't sell yourself short. You can learn in the process. I learned tons in the company, like I was having experts all around it. And then I learned how to do, my job, by the end of the time when I was there, I was learning so many things that suddenly it became part of who I am right now. Now, if you think about going forward in the role that I am currently, I am hiring people that are software developers, statisticians, mathematicians, and all that stuff. And then you learn also from all these people, what are the key components that I need to learn. You cannot be everything, you need to specialize as well. So kind of like what is called the T-shape. And search for it, you will see. Just trust yourself.
Taking the conversation to a different tangent, data is being talked about being the next currency. And I'm pretty sure most of our speakers here work with data every single day. And I'd like you to share your perspectives about how can we use data in different industries or different job roles that each one of you are doing to get a better picture. Because when we're students, we just get so overwhelmed seeing so much of data. I'm pretty sure they're people using their cell phones every time. There's pictures being generated, there's numbers being generated, but they have so much meaning to them when you really dig deeper into it. And I know, Aaron, you touched upon that topic. And so, because we have an interdisciplinary panel here, I would love to get those different perspectives.
Yes, I do collect a lot of data, especially when you have those automatic data. So number one thing is I need to set up some QA and QR procedures to do a data quality check, because we said bad data actually it's worse than no data. So you don't want a bad data, and then set up a procedures that screening those data. And now once you have the data, you need to analyze. And yesterday I got a big set of data from one graduate student. It's all raw data. So I take one set of data, do all the analysis, play around. Once I set up the procedure, and I can show students. So the data analysis part of a different field, there's so many different ways. And so that's why, for our data, raw data, screen data, process data, analyze data, and the final data used for paper. And so if you are my student, by the time you graduate, you will get a big USB drive. You have to put all the data there for me, and also put an index file to tell me where is the data. You have the data name and what is the content, which what are there, and also you turn in all your lab notebook, your field notebook that belongs to the university. So, and yes, you do have a policy on data ownership. So as a graduate student, you don't own the data. As me, if I leave, all the data keeps with the university. So there are so many details on data. I may not touch all of them, but I work with them.
I'm looking at it through the military lens. I mean, that's absolutely at the forefront of conversations right now. So when you look at intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance platforms, whether it's in the air, on the ground, in the sea, wherever they are, they have sensors, right? And they're collecting data. And what I've seen through the years is most of that data is never used, because the pipeline to get the data from the sensor back to where it's processed is finite. And so even though the platform can suck up, almost unlimited amounts of data, right? only a tiny bit gets carved off and sent back for processing. The rest just goes away. And so there's folks right now looking at, okay, are there ways that we can get that data and start mining that to gain new insights, new knowledge, new information that was kind of there all the time, but we just weren't looking because we didn't have the mechanisms to. And so there's lots on the back end. One of the other pieces too is, going back up, then in terms of transporting, that's another huge area that's getting looked at right now as the military, just like the world writ large, becomes more connected, and the military Internet of Things, making sure that different people, different systems can talk to each other. And so what's exciting in this local area is really the future backbone of military communications is being established as we speak by the Space Development Agency, who's actually setting up their first operations center up at Grand Forks Air Force Base. So right here in the local area, a lot of this, making that straw bigger at least, is happening right here in the local area with some phenomenal opportunities. But then the other piece too is, even if you make the straw bigger, there's still a straw, it's still finite. And so there's also a lot of folks, various organizations looking at edge computing, of putting processors on, forward embedded on the, whatever the system is, to kind of look right there at a lot of the data and then intelligently peel off what the artificial intelligence with that edge computing thinks is important and only send those important bits back. And then the stuff that's not interesting, you can kind of do that processing up front and not even have to try to shove it through the straw. So again, from a military perspective, so many opportunities out there. But again, I think it's really just mirroring the world writ large of just all the relook at all the data and how do you mine it and data insights.
So nowadays, data is the new gold, right? If you have data, you control the world. And since you all are here listening to this, you actually missed a big announcement that was going on inside, and that's the announcement of the Data Hub from Grand Farm, which what they do is they seek to have a place to organize all the agricultural data so we can run new machine learning models and we can make new technologies with data that's built here, mined here. And Kirkwall is proud to be one of the first adopters of it. And I just wanted to leave you with, look at data analysis. Data is the future and it will continue to run the world.
Data is really important, but you got to pair it with formal and informal knowledge to create new information. Is that NDVI image worth anything? It's people like you that are going to figure that out, right? Is that 2-to-1 backslope in sand good enough to prevent the trench from caving in? Your experience will tell you that. And so obviously data is super important and we can collect it in a much more efficient way than we have been able to in the past. But formal and informal knowledge is really where the value gets created.
That's a hard statement to follow because it's so true, but you guys are so lucky. You're living in a world where data is so easy to... I have small children, and you ask them anything or say any statement, the first thing they do is Google it. They want to find out if it's true or not. They haven't discovered ChatGPT yet, but I'm afraid when they do. You guys, you can Google it, and then you can turn it into something amazing with ChatGPT. We are just at the beginning of what you're going to be able to pull in with AI. It's absolutely, the opportunities are absolutely endless. You guys are in a very amazing, amazing time where all of that data is at your fingertips. I had to grow up without Google. If I wanted to find something, I had to go to a library and read it in a book, and I didn't even know if it was real or not because I couldn't fact check as easy as you. You guys have such a tremendous amount of opportunity that exists. It's funny you mentioned about, is AI going to take jobs? I get asked that all the time too. AI can only do so much. 100% the people that can use AI are going to be the people that are going to take the jobs. Don't, if you haven't checked out ChatGPT yet, please do. It's amazing. It'll write you a resume and a cover letter and help you get that you want a mentorship role, it'll write you the email. And then you can tell it to be more concise and personal, and it'll write it more concise and personal for you. And then you take it and you find your heart in it and turn it into something that means something. That sandwich that he was talking about, very, very huge opportunity. So not only do you have the data out there, everywhere, all over, but you have the AI to help you process that data and turn it into something meaningful. We're in a very, very blessed age.
I'll just give a plug. You can check out, I have a 5-minute AI video, so I do short videos in 5 minutes or less on how to use AI. So there's one there on data interpreter, which is something that you can use as part of ChatGPT. Upload any spreadsheet with any amount of data, and it'll just spit back answers and graphs and everything you need. So whether you're writing a paper or doing work, like it's a great way to immediately get exactly what you want, not just text, also visually. It used to be called Code Interpreter. They just changed the name yesterday. So it's a data interpreter, yeah.
Just like to emphasize what our panel members have already said about data. This entire aircraft over here is all about collecting data. There's a visibility sensor, a temperature sensor, humidity sensor. We have sensors